So the next topic is appendix. So, appendix initially we will discuss regarding the anatomy of appendix. Okay. So appendix can range from 2 centimeter to 20 centimeter in length. Range from 2 centimeter to 20 centimeter in length. And the capacity of appendix is only 0.1 ml. Okay. 0.1 ml is the capacity. And it is supplied by appendicular artery. Okay. Blood supply is by appendicular artery, which is an end artery and is a continuation of ileocholic artery. Okay. Now, what is the most common location of appendix? Most common location is retrocecal. And the second most the least common is very frequently asked nowadays. The least common location is post-ileal. And most dangerous location to have appendicitis is pelvic appendicitis. Okay. Because generally there are no symptoms in the right iliac fossa and it presents with diarrhea and mucus discharge, and there is a delay in the diagnosis. The most common location retrocecal. The least common location, which is frequently asked nowadays, is post-ileal. Okay. So this retrocecal is here. It is behind the cecum and it is at 11 o'clock position. Okay. So this is important. And the other locations are pre-ileal, post-ileal, subcecal and pelvic locations. Now we'll discuss regarding now regarding the blood supply. There is an ileocholic artery which is giving the branches to the terminal ileum and cecum, and it is continuing after giving these branches as appendicular artery going through the mesoappendix, and it is a terminal or the end artery. Okay. It is end artery, branch of ileocholic artery. So now the most important topic in appendix is acute appendicitis. We will discuss acute appendicitis in detail. Due to various reasons, there is development of inflammation in the appendix leading to acute appendicitis, and acute appendicitis is the most common surgical emergency which is seen worldwide. Okay. Most common cause for acute appendicitis is fecolith, and the patient generally presents with pain in the abdomen along with various other features like fever, leukocytosis, nausea, vomiting, and the treatment of choice is appendicectomy, and the investigation of choice is, it is diagnosed clinical, but to confirm in equivocal cases we go for either ultrasound and CT scan. Okay. So now we will discuss this acute appendicitis in detail. So it is the most common general surgical emergency seen worldwide. It is the most common general surgical emergency worldwide, generally seen in young patients, generally second decade. But if they are seen in children who are less than 5 year age or in old patients who are more than 60 or 65 years age, then the prognosis is less favorable, or it is associated with poor prognosis or poor prognosis as compared to the routine acute appendicitis which is seen in young patients due to the delay in diagnosis and all. Okay, so now what is the pathophysiology? Now this is appendix. There is a fecalith here in the appendix. Due to this presence of fecalith, there is increase in pressure. Okay. So this increase in pressure of the appendix leads to blockage of the blood supply, lymphatic supply to the appendix. So it is very easy to understand. Generally, arteries are having high pressure, followed by veins and followed by lymphatic. So whenever there is an increase in the pressure, initially there will be decrease in the lymphatic supply, followed by decrease in the venous return or venous supply, followed by decrease in the arterial supply. And later on, after this arterial supply decrease or venous supply decrease, it will lead to a gangrene, which may lead to a perforation later on. Okay, so there will be increased pressure because of this fecalith or some tumor. There will be blockage in the appendix and there will be raised pressure in the appendix or raised intraluminal pressure, which leads to impaired. Initially, there will be impaired lymphatic drainage, which will lead to edema. Then there will be impaired venous drainage, which will lead to more edema and ischemia. And there will be impaired arterial supply, which finally lead to gangrene, which finally lead to perforation. This is the pathophysiology of acute appendicitis. Now, regarding the perforation, what is the most common site of perforation? Okay, so if there is a mesoappendix here, most common site of perforation is this one, the antemesenteric side, just beyond the site of obstruction. Okay, not at the tip. Okay, so this is the most common site of perforation, just distal to obstruction, just distal to the obstruction on antemesenteric border. This is asked frequently, just distal to obstruction on antemesenteric border. Okay, and in perforation, what is the most common organism which is isolated? It is bacteroides. Most common organism isolated is bacteroides, followed by E. coli. This is also important. Most common is bacteroides. This is important. Okay. Now, what all are the clinical features? Okay. So, I'll explain it to you first. Appendix is developing from midgut. So whenever there will be any pathology in the midgut, initially there will be pain in the periumbilical region, and gradually as the appendicitis pathology evolve, gradually there will be pain at the local region at the right iliac fossa. So initially there will be a periumbilical pain which later on migrates to the right iliac fossa. So there will be presence of pain in the abdomen. Most common clinical feature is pain in the abdomen, Most classical or most characteristic feature is the migratory pain, which is initially in the periumbilical region and which later on migrates to the right iliac fossa. Along with that, patient also presents with nausea, vomiting, fever or elevated temperature. We'll go clinical features. There will be pain, periumbilical region initially, which later on migrates to right iliac fossa. Okay, and along with that, there will be anorexia and nausea and vomiting. What is the most common symptom from MCQ point of view? It is abdominal pain. Okay, what is the most characteristic symptom of acute appendicitis? It is migratory pain. Okay, now what all are the signs which we will be able to palpate or elicit on a patient with acute appendicitis? There will be tenderness in the right iliac fossa. There may be rebound tenderness, and there may be presence of fever or elevated temperature. Okay, so these are symptoms. There is signs also, which is tenderness in right iliac fossa. There will be rebound tenderness, and there may be elevated temperature. And in laboratory investigations, there may be leukocytosis, or there may be shift to left. Okay, so this can be remembered as the mnemonic Mantrels, which I will discuss later on also while in the diagnosis or the clinical diagnosis of acute appendicitis. Okay, now there are many named signs in acute appendicitis. I'll first enumerate them, then explain them to you, and then I'll discuss them one by one. Okay, so all the named signs I'll first write. There is Dunphy's sign, then there is Aron sign, there is Tenhorn sign. The majority of them have been asked in the MCQs previously. Rovsing's sign, then there is obturator sign, and then there is Soas sign. Okay, now in acute appendicitis, if there is a well developed acute appendicitis, if we'll palpate in the left iliac fossa, then also the patient will be feeling pain in the right iliac fossa. If we'll palpate the epigastrium, then also patient will feel the pain in right iliac fossa. If we will retract the right testis of the patient, at that time also the patient will feel pain. Okay, along with that, if the patient will cough, at that time also patient will feel pain. Okay, so all these signs are given different names. Okay, there is nothing special about these signs. This is a normal finding, but from MCQ point of view, it is important to remember. So whenever a patient is coughing or a pain on coughing is Dunphy's sign. Pain on pressure in epigastrium. Whenever we are giving pressure in epigastrium, at that time if there is pain, it is Aron sign. Pain on gentle traction of right testis is Tenhorn sign. This T test is for Tenhorn sign, T in Tenhorn sign. This is the way I have remembered during my preparation also. Now there is a Rovsing sign which is important and is the most characteristic among all these signs, okay, for acute appendicitis. So there is pain in right iliac fossa on pressing left iliac fossa, okay. Pain in right iliac fossa on pressing left iliac fossa. This is very important and this is the most characteristic sign. Of acute appendicitis, okay. Now regarding this obturator sign and psoas sign, I will first tell them that they are seen in only a specific type of appendicitis. Like for example, this obturator sign is seen in pelvic appendicitis, and this psoas sign is seen in retrocecal appendicitis, okay. These two are important. Now firstly I will explain to you okay, I will explain to you first the obturator sign. Obturator sign, as I have already told you, it is seen in pelvic appendicitis. It is seen in pelvic appendicitis. So whenever there is pain on internal rotation of the right thigh over the hip joint, then there is obturator sign which is seen in, which is characteristic of pelvic appendicitis. There is pain on internal rotation of right thigh over the hip joint. Then this is obturator sign. Now regarding this pelvic appendicitis, the clinical features of pelvic appendicitis are diarrhea and microscopic hematuria. Because this pelvic appendicitis, it irritates the bladder, irritates the ureter and irritates the rectum also. There is presence of diarrhea and microscopic hematuria. And because these are non-specific for acute appendicitis or not characteristic of acute appendicitis, there is a delay in diagnosis. Or there is high likelihood of perforation because of this delay in diagnosis. So that is why pelvic appendicitis is the most serious appendicitis among all locations, okay. What is the definition of this microscopic hematuria? It is the presence of more than 3 RBCs per high power field, okay, more than 3 RBCs per high power field. Now the next is psoas sign. As I have already told you, it is seen in retrocecal appendicitis. It is seen in retrocecal appendicitis, and there is hyperextension at right hip joint, okay. Now Rovsing sign, I have already explained to you that Rovsing sign, there is pain in right iliac fossa on pressing the left iliac fossa of the patient. Now Rovsing sign apart from this Rovsing sign, there is a Rovsing syndrome also, and there is a Rovsing's operation also. So Rovsing sign is seen in acute appendicitis. Rovsing syndrome seen in horseshoe kidney. Okay, in which the hyperextension of spine leads to pain and nausea and vomiting. So the hyperextension of spine will leads to hyperextension of spine leads to pain, nausea and vomiting in horseshoe kidney. Okay, and what is Rovsing's operation? It is deroofing of cysts seen in autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease, ADPKD. Okay, autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease. Okay, now the diagnosis of appendicitis. So the diagnosis of appendicitis is purely clinical. Okay, so it is purely clinical, and the other investigations apart from the clinical investigation, clinical examination, we are just doing to supplement our clinical diagnosis. Okay, so the diagnosis is purely clinical. It is supplemented by laboratory investigations and radiological investigations. And most commonly, the radiological investigation that we are doing in cases of acute appendicitis is ultrasound. Okay, CT scan is rarely done and is only done in equivocal findings or cases with equivocal findings. Okay, now how we diagnose this acute appendicitis? In acute, what is the investigation of choice for acute appendicitis in children? It is ultrasound. Okay, what is the gold standard investigation to confirm appendicitis or to diagnose appendicitis? It is CECT abdomen. Okay, investigation of choice in children is ultrasound, and gold standard investigation is CECT abdomen, but it is mainly diagnosed with clinical judgment, and the lab investigations is done to supplement the diagnosis. Okay, what is the treatment? Treatment is emergency appendicectomy. Okay, now what is this Alvarado score? It is to diagnose acute appendicitis. To diagnose, for diagnosis of acute appendicitis, we are using this Alvarado score or Mantrels. Okay, there is presence of symptoms plus signs plus laboratory investigations. Okay, there are 3 symptoms, 3 signs and 2 laboratory investigations. Okay, and the maximum Alvarado score can be, maximum it can be 10. Okay, maximum score can be 10. So the features which are included in this Alvarado score are, as you can see here, migration of pain or the migratory pain, it is migratory pain, anorexia, nausea, tenderness, in the right lower abdomen or right lower quadrant, there is rebound tenderness, elevated temperature, leukocytosis, and shift to left. Okay, this we have discussed before. Now, 1 point is given to all these features, and 2 points are given to two features. 2 points are given to tenderness and leukocytosis. Okay, so to remember, there is a mnemonic which is very famous, LT2. There is leukocytosis and tenderness, and 2 points are given to them. That is why the maximum score is 10. Okay, recently I have asked this question to one of my students, that among the all the features of Mandrel score, how 2 points are given to which two factors. Then she told me that there is leukocytosis and temperature. Okay, based on this mnemonic. So, but the T stands for tenderness here. For temperature, there is elevated temperature, which is for E. Okay, so this will have to be very sure, and that it is tenderness and not temperature. Okay, so there is leukocytosis and tenderness. 2 points are given to them. Now, among out of this 10, if there is 9 or 10, then the diagnosis is certain that it is acute appendicitis. If there is 7 or 8 score, then it is high likelihood of diagnosis. If it is 5 or 6, then it is equivocal. This is very important to understand. 5 or 6 is for equivocal, and if less than 5, then it is negative for acute appendicitis. Okay. Now, in equivocal cases, we will go for CT scan. In equivocal cases, we will go for CT of the abdomen. Okay, so this is how we diagnose. Now, there is perforation in the appendix sometimes, or the perforated appendix. What all are the factors or features which increase the risk of perforation in appendix? So, increased risk of perforation is seen in patients having fecolids, increased risk is seen in patients having fecolids, patients who are diabetics, patients who are immunocompromised, okay, or if there are extremes of ages, if the child is less than 5 years, or if the patient is more than 65 years, they both are high risk for perforation. And in patients with pelvic appendicitis, and if there is history of any previous surgery. So if there is pelvic appendicitis, and if there is any previous surgery, okay, a previous abdominal surgery, then it is difficult to elicit findings in these patients. So these all are the risk factors for increased risk for perforation. Okay, now what is the most common site for perforation? It is just distal to the site of obstruction on the antimesenteric border. Okay, and what is the most common organism or the microorganism identified in the perforated appendicitis in the pus? It is bacteroids, not E. coli. It is bacteroids. Okay, so what is the treatment for acute appendicitis? Emergency appendicectomy. Okay, sometimes whenever we are taking up a patient for acute for appendicectomy, after anesthesia, before going for surgery, before proceeding, we'll palpate the abdomen first. And on palpation, if we are able to identify a lump in the right iliac fossa, then we will not proceed for surgery. And in patients with appendicular lump, we will do a conservative management first, because due to the dense adhesions which is forming a lump, sometimes it is very difficult to isolate the appendix. There is more chances of creating a fistula or a bowel fistula. That is why a conservative management is preferred in patients with appendicular lump. As such also, if a patient is presenting with acute appendicitis and if we are palpating a lump, we will not proceed for surgery. We will get a CT scan done and we will manage the patient conservatively, and we will assess whether the patient is improving with conservative management or not. In case if the patient is improving, then we will continue the conservative management. In case if the patient is not improving, then we will go for emergency surgery. Okay. This is regarding appendicular lump, and this conservative management regimen is known as Ochsner-Sharon regimen. Okay, so we will discuss appendicular lump now. Appendicular lump. In patients with appendicitis, because of this appendicitis, this omentum will come here. Omentum will come here and omentum will wrap this whole area to contain the inflammation. Okay, and this forms a lump which we are able to feel on clinical examination. And this appendicular lump consists of part of cecum, terminal ileum, appendix obviously, and omentum. Okay, and there is increased chances of fistula formation during surgery. That is why preferred treatment for appendicular lump is conservative management, also known as Ochsner-Sharon regimen. In Ochsner-Sharon regimen, we will keep the patient nilperoral. We will monitor vitals, fever, and size of lump. We will see for TLC count, and we will mark the lump on the abdomen, and we will check on a daily basis whether the lump is increasing in size. If the lump is increasing in size, if there is fever, if there is raised TLC or increasing TLC, if there is tachycardia or the vitals are not maintaining, the patient is not maintaining vitals, there is tachycardia, we will go for surgery. Okay, because there is a high likelihood of a small contained perforation or development of abscess or a perforation which has already developed. Okay, so in these cases, if the patient is not improving on conservative management, we will go for surgery. Otherwise, we will manage the patient conservatively. If the patient is improving, we will continue the conservative management and we will get a CT done. And if the patient improves, then we will not go for appendicectomy, not even for interval appendicectomy. This was a previous concept that we will do interval appendicectomy once the inflammation settles after 6 weeks. But it has been seen now that in majority of the patients, they will not develop a recurrent appendicitis. So we will do appendicectomy only if patients are developing recurrent appendicitis. Otherwise, we will not do appendicectomy now. Okay. So interval appendicectomy, not routinely performed. and done only in recurrent appendicitis. Okay. Now we'll discuss appendiceal tumors now. Okay. What is the most common tumor of appendix? It is carcinoid tumor. Okay. I have already told you in the carcinoid tumor that this LOAR, okay, the tumors of larynx, ovary, appendix, rectum, they all are localized tumors. Okay, and among all the carcinoid tumors, appendiceal tumors are having the best prognosis. Okay, so this appendiceal carcinoid tumor is small, localized, most common location is tip, and it is generally not perforated, and the prognosis is very good. Okay, and generally it is not associated with carcinoid syndrome. Okay, so it is small, localized tumor, not associated with metastasis, not associated with carcinoid syndrome, and there is good prognosis. Okay, now most common location is tip of appendix. If there is appendix, this is appendix. If there is a tumor, this is the base of appendix. Okay, this is the mesoappendix. If there is a tumor here, or if there is a tumor here, okay, what will be the treatment? So the treatment in appendiceal tumor, it depends on the size of tumor. If the size is less than 1 centimeter, we will go for appendicectomy. If it is more than 2 centimeter, we'll go for right hemicolectomy. Okay, and if it is 1 to 2 centimeter, we will do usually appendicectomy. There are certain features which need right hemicolectomy. Okay, indications of right hemicolectomy. These indications are if the tumor is involving the mesoappendix or if it is involving the base of appendix, okay, and if there is presence of lymph nodes. The tumor is involving base of appendix involvement, there is involvement of mesoappendix, there is presence of lymph nodes. Okay, then in these cases we will go for right hemicolectomy. Okay, now appendiceal incisions are asked very commonly, and to understand the incisions of appendicectomy, we will first understand the basic anatomy here. This is umbilicus, this is ASIS, anterior superior iliac spine, umbilicus. Okay, we will draw a line here. This is a spino-umbilical line. This is a spino-umbilical line, and the point which is joining the medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3 of the spino-umbilical line is the McBurney's point. Okay, this is the McBurney's point which joins medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3 of spino-umbilical line. And this McBurney's point, it corresponds to the base of appendix. It corresponds to base of appendix. Okay. Now there are various incisions on which various kind of questions are being asked. Okay, I'll draw a diagram here only and then I'll explain. At the level of McBurney's point, if there is a incision which is like this, it is known as McBurney's incision. McBurney's incision. Now, it is a muscle splitting incision. Okay. Now, if there is a McBurney's incision which is going along the McBurney's point, which is also known as a gridiron incision, or MacArthur incision, or MacArthur incision. At the going from the McBurney's point, if there is incision, it is a muscle splitting incision, and it is also known as a gridiron incision or MacArthur's incision. Now there are various modifications of the McBurney's incision for appendicectomy. I'll first explain it in the diagram and then I'll explain it separately. This Rocky Davis incision was a transverse incision given crossing the McBurney's point. If we give the incision transversely, this is known as Rocky Davis incision. And if we are extending this Rocky Davis incision laterally and cutting the muscle and the conjoint tendon, then it is known as Rutherford-Morrison extension of the Rocky Davis incision. And if we are extending it medially, then it is known as Fowler-Weir extension. Okay. So this Rocky Davis incision is horizontal, and if we are giving incision along the normal anatomical skin crease, which is going through the McBurney's point, but it is along the anatomical crease incision, which is a muscle splitting incision, then it is known as Lanz incision. Okay. And if we are giving incision and the McBurney's point like this, then it is known as a Rocky Davis incision, which you can see in the diagram also. Okay, so this is a Rocky Davis incision. If we are extending it laterally, it is known as Rutherford-Morrison. Which is a muscle cutting. Medially, if we are extending, it is Fowler-Weir extension. Okay, so this Rutherford-Morrison muscle cutting one is used for retrocecal type of appendicitis, retrocecal appendix. Okay, now there is a better cosmetic incision which is we are making a hypothetical line which is joining the midpoint of clavicle to midpoint of inguinal ligament. Okay, and along this line, if 2 centimeter below the umbilicus, we are giving the incision along the skin crease. 2 centimeter below umbilicus, incision along skin crease, and this incision is a muscle splitting incision. And what is the name of this incision? It is Lanz incision. And among all the incisions, this Lanz incision is the cosmetically better incision. It is cosmetically better. Okay, so this Lanz incision, Rocky Davis incision, then there is Rutherford Morrison's extension laterally, Fowler Weir extension medially, and then there is McBurney's incision. Along with that, we can also go for laparoscopic appendicectomy. Okay, so that is all about appendix.